We are straight away moving on to the next session, which is on theme Resilience, Repair and Redundancy of Subsea Cables, Future-Proofing Connectivity Industry. So digital infrastructure continues to grow, ensuring the reliability, uptime and adaptability of our subsea cable systems is more important than ever. The coming up session will explore how industry leaders are addressing the pressing need for network resilience, swift repair mechanisms, and built-in redundancy in cable architecture to secure uninterrupted global connectivity. And to guide us through this crucial conversation, ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome on stage our session chair, Shri Arun Kumar Chaube ji, Director Project Telecommunication Consultants India Limited, TCIL. Let's put our hands together. I would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Vinesh Bawa, Partner and Telecom Sector Leader, PwC. Also inviting our eminent panelist, Mr. Ashutosh Jutsi, Senior Vice President and Head, Submarine Business Unit, NEC Corporation Limited, Mr. Somesh Gaur, AVP, Head, Subsea Cable and Satellite Operation, Tata Communications Transformation Services, and Mr. Neil Duckworth, General Manager, Marine Maintenance, Alcatel Submarine Networks. Ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished chair, Shri Arun Kumar Chaube ji, Director Project Telecommunication Consultants India Limited, with decades of experience in managing complex telecom projects globally, brings a comprehensive understanding of project implementation, international collaboration, and robust infrastructure development. And our distinguished moderator, Mr. Vinesh Bawa, Partner in Telecom Sector Leader, PwC, has advised leading telecom operators and infrastructure players on strategy, technology, and transformation. His deep insights into regulatory frameworks and emerging technologies make him the ideal moderator for today's conversation. But before we invite Mr. Vinesh Bawa to moderate the session, I would like to invite our session chair, Shri Arun Kumar Chaube ji, for the opening remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I wish to express my gratitude to Broadband India Forum for organizing first international subsea cable conference here. And this is being organized at a very right time for such a crucial issue. Let me introduce myself. I am Arun Kumar Chaube. I am Director Project in TCIL. TCIL is one of the most diversified PSU of India, almost doing everything in technology and infrastructure. We are having footprints in almost 80 countries internationally also, and currently we are working almost in half of the Africa and most of the Gulf countries. In subsea cable also, we have got good experience as TCIL. We are a well-known name in submarine cable in India. We are expert in DPR preparation. We are expert in project monitoring. And we have been doing this work for the last several years. To name a few, we have been involved in this Chennai Andaman Nicobar Island, where we have connected 8 islands of Andaman and Nicobar port. It's around 2,400 kilometer subsea cable project. Next one was Kochi, Lakshadweep, where we have done almost 13 segments and 12 landing stations. And I'm really very proud to announce here that we have recently submitted one DPR to DOT on the same subject, how to create our indigenous capability for cable repair system. I suppose before this two panel discussions have been held. One was on the opportunities development and the first one was development and I suppose challenges of the submarine cable industry regionally and globally. The second one was mostly on the frameworks, success and how to do these policies so that this more and more investment can come in. I hope this session will bring some light on the how this cable can be protected from cut and some natural disasters. There have been concerns globally towards safety of the subsea cable due to some incidents of cable cuts in Baltic and Red Sea. This, because most of our data, international data flows on this cable, subsea cable. So this is, and the capacity is almost 80 to 90% that we operate on. Therefore, any cut anywhere in the world that impacts the internet traffic globally. You all must be knowing that internationally there are almost 200 cuts annually that is happening. And the cable is being repaired by almost 5, 6, 7 big corporate joints. एक यहाँ भी बैठे हैं मिस्टर जुत्शी, NEC. India, incidentally, unfortunately, does not have any facility, any capability, indigenous capability for any cable repair work. It takes almost 60 to 70 days for any cut to repair. We at least lose 2 to 3 months of traffic there. Just before this session, we were discussing with Mr. Jutshi, and we were discussing that this Andaman Nicobar Island, there is only one cable that is going to Andaman Island, and there is no alternate media for that island. Suppose any cut happens there, so it will take at least 3 months to repair that, and till that time, that island will be isolated. So, I mean, seeing the criticality of this nature, it's very important and it's very necessary that we should have this capability here in India so that we can repair the cable as soon as possible. See, bringing vessels from outside, here in India, we get these services from E-Marine from UAE or Sicoma from Singapore. Getting these vessels from these two entities, it's very difficult because a lot of approvals, permissions are also required from different ministries. So just to streamline that, even TRI recommended some time back that we should have one framework where we should have this capability for cable repair, and single window permission is needed here for cutting this time slot to some reasonable time. I hope our panelists will enlighten you on these topics and will have some solution before we leave this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaubeji. That was always very enlightening, as usual. So good afternoon, everybody. This is, probably the last session before we end for the day. And first of all, congratulations to BIF team. Fantastic event. I think it is really heartening to see an event on Subsea. Also, it's interesting to see an event where AI is hardly being spoken. These days, every event all we talk about is AI. But and I will bring in AI flavor over here as well. But great stuff. I think fantastic to see this happening. One quick thing, I'll request everybody who's at the back, feel free to come in the front. We can make this more interactive. You can hear us better, you can see us better, and we can talk more as well. So feel free to come in the front. There is a lot of space as well. So yeah, I'll just request that. So quickly, from an introduction standpoint, I'm Vinish Bava. I'm a partner with PwC. I take care of the telecom sector, doing a lot of work on data centers, fibers, tower co, passive work, and background-wise come from Nokia, Alcatel-Lucent. So done enough work on the on the subsea side, on optics and IP routing, etc. So that's me. What we'll do today is we'll try to cover, we've heard about the importance of the cables. We've heard about the situation of where we are with the subsea cables in the world, in India, the dynamics around it. Right in the next 30, 40 odd minutes, we'll try to cover what do we really need to do from an operational standpoint? What are the key issues facing us? And we call it the 3 Rs, repair, redundancy, and resilience, and reliability, right? 4th R, actually. That how do we take care of the operational stuff? What are the issues which are, up right in front of us? I'll call it the elephant in the room that we need to address, right? What, as private, public partnerships, what can we do to solve that? The operational part of it, the repair part of it, the availability of cables in India, all those aspects. The more the operational, I think that's, and we have experts over here. What we'll do quickly is just go to a quick 30-second intro of everybody here so that you know who they are and which company they come from. Neil, you have been quiet, so we'll come to you if you can hear us, and we should hear you. So I'll start with you, Neil, if you can do a quick 30-second intro about yourself.
Thank you very much for inviting us to join. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Little more volume.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best to be heard. Firstly, thank you very much for inviting us. I work for Alcatel Submarine Networks. I've been with the company for 26 years in various different departments. The last 6 years of which have been looking after the operational side of the marine repairs. So we cover 3 main regions, so the Atlantic, with some extra bits, north, south, east and west, and then the North and South Pacific, and those regions now extend to cover most of India as well. Okay, so we're progressively expanding the coverage we operate in, and manage repairs in all the different jurisdictions and the challenges that a lot of people have talked about already today.
All right, thank you, Neil. There is still some, voices not very clear, so I don't know whether it's your end or us. You might want to get closer to the mic or headset, but we'll come to that in a minute. Somesh?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Somesh Gaur from Tata Communications, and I'm representing Tata Communication Transformation Services, which is a 100% subsidiary of Tata Communication. So we are into managed services, and we provide consultancy with respect to all telcos. And consultancy and managed services also includes, submarine cables and satellite. So I've been working for the last 25 years, more than 25 years in submarine cable industry, primarily working with Tata Communication. And I've gone through all the operational issues, and I hope I'll be able to add some value to this discussion. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Somesh. Ashutosh?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashutosh Jutsi. I work for NEC Corporation India, and I've been in the telecom sector for more than 30 years. And as we say, as Otasan mentioned in his presentation, between ocean floor to outer space and anything in between, I've actually lived that. I started my career in NEC with satellite systems. I migrated to terrestrial microwave equipment later on, and now I'm handling the submarine cable business. And whatever I know about submarine cables is courtesy DOT, TCIL, and BSNL. From the Canny days, that was the first project that I implemented, and then followed by KLI project and private project. I've implemented 3 projects in India over the last 7-8 years, and these 3 projects have given me immense insights into the submarine cable industry, submarine cable business, and submarine systems as a technology, and I hope I can use that knowledge today to share my views with all of you. And thanks a lot for organizing this seminar, Broadband India. I hope many more to come. and thanks for the audience for staying back. It's not easy to stay back after lunch for the last session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ashutosh. So yeah, so we have ASN, NEC, the two largest players in this space. We have the service providers, we have the services companies. So we have the who's who to cover this topic. I think it'll be interesting to hear. So we have seen in the morning. So in terms of some numbers, there is almost like a 10 trillion of financial transactions being carried on this, on a daily basis, being carried on subsea cables. Just in India, we have more than 850 million internet users. All that traffic has to be carried on something, right? The cables are doing that. Then also we are looking at the data growth because of AI, because of 5G, edge computing, cloud computing, and this is just the start of the high data that is going to, take this whole world by storm. All that is carried, again, subsea cables. And I think it is an ignored area. I would say we don't talk about it so much, but it is pretty much the backbone of this whole, industry of data consumption around how do we utilize data. It is running on subsea cables. 99% of international data traffic runs on subsea cables. Now these cables are undersea. There can be all kind of issues which are there, because of the natural scenarios that happen. There are all kind of cuts that happen. There is geopolitical scenarios. There can be so many operational issues, and then we come and try to solve that problem through some vessels. There is in India. We heard in the morning also that there are hardly any repair vessels, 1 or 2 probably. That also not fully there. It takes 3, 4, 5 months to repair if there is a fault which happens. So any cuts that happen take a lot of time to repair. So we are basically saying that there is a backbone infrastructure, but services capabilities don't exist, right? Is there a framework? Is there a regulation around it? Work in progress. Still lots needs to happen. So the importance is clear, but again, a lot of work needs to happen on the practical part of the operational. That how do we make things fast? How do we, Honorable Prime Minister has spoken about India become a digital economy of the future. How do we do that without the infrastructure not being there on the subsea side? So I think these are the things that we have to address. We have to see where the problem lies. Maybe the work is in progress from solution perspective, but there's a long way to go is what we hear. So we'll try to touch all these cases because it is super, super critical for a country like India, which is leading the data consumption, but the number of cables are 1 less, 2 operational issues are there, 3 it takes time to manage them, and 4 there is hardly any infrastructure to take care of the, from a repair perspective. So it's an irony in fact, the high data consumption, but something needs to happen over here. So we'll try to address that, and maybe we'll start, I'll Ashutosh with you from the the faults that happen on the cable side. How much is it the geopolitical scenario affecting that? What really happens? What's your view on why do these faults happen? Is geopolitical a big issue there? And what's your opinion on this space?
Thank you, Vinish. You see, geopolitics part of it is coming recently into picture as such. But any critical infrastructure, any infrastructure which is important for the society, for the governments, for the countries, will always become a target for such attacks, particularly at the times of conflict. So I think I would not want to focus on that as much as on the core reason and the majority of the reasons behind frequent submarine cable damages or cuts. Of course, geopolitical issues have come into picture because they are intentional and unavoidable. But there are many other reasons which are actually avoidable, for which there are countermeasures in place, but sometimes they don't become sufficient. So let me give you a little bit of a technical understanding of this, because I have been part of several projects and I know it now much deeply for everybody to understand what we are talking about actually. If we look at India as an example, as you must have known by now, there are majority of the cables landing into Mumbai and Chennai. And if you look at these 2 locations, out of these 2 locations, Mumbai is accounting for most submarine cable landings as compared to Chennai. Obvious reasons. And if we look at the submarine cable requirements, then Mumbai is not a friendly terrain. Mumbai and west coast of India is not a friendly terrain for submarine cables. Is that not interesting to hear? majority of the submarine cables coming into a place which is not friendly. Amazing. There are other reasons for that. Why it is not friendly is because it has a shallower continental shelf. The continental shelf continues to be shallow for several kilometers, whereas in Chennai, the continental shelf is much more steeper, and it becomes steep within 5-6 kilometers of the coast. So for the protection of the cable, it is important. And in Mumbai, we have to carry out additional protection mechanism for protect the cable. That's one. And more cables landing into the same place makes it more vulnerable to damages. And on top of that, we have several pipelines off the coast of Mumbai. There are oil explorations happening in Mumbai. There are several pipelines. So there are pipelines, there are existing cables, there is shallow waters. It's a deadly combination. And let me explain further. How do you protect the cables? You are protecting the cables nearer the shore by trying to bury the cable as much as possible. And in some cases, put some additional protection around the cable. But with so many existing cables, with so many pipelines in place, it's not possible to bury the cable everywhere. You have to cross those pipelines, you have to cross those existing cables, and cables cannot be buried sufficiently at those crossing points. And they become the prime locations for faults. And that's what we are seeing today. We are seeing faults occurring, let's say, go back by several years. There would be faults once a year or once in few years. Now there are faults once in a month, once in few months. Imagine the situation. One cable or the other is experiencing a fault because of this. I don't know how many people in the regulatory domain know about it. They must be seeing the applications coming in for repairs. So that means we must find alternative locations for landing the cable. That's very important and eminent if we have to protect these cables from failures, avoidable failures. And apart from that, the redundancy part of it, in terms of having multiple landings, in terms of having partnerships among various cable owners to support each other's traffic, that's anyway happening. But let me bring one more kind of an alarming fact. The information you got today is the total lit capacity in India is around 140 terabytes. A single cable coming in into India now is capable of supporting that much of traffic. Imagine if that cable fails, how can you shift that much of traffic to the other cables? So you see, that's the situation. So it's a sitting time bomb. It has to be addressed. We have to, on one hand, look into the regulatory matters of getting the permissions in place fast enough. But at the same time, we have to preempt the faults by addressing these matters, as I mentioned.
No, thank you, Ashutosh. In fact, we'll come to the, sorry, you.
Just to supplement Ashutosh's point of view, that for this Andaman Nicobar connectivity, the cable is connected to Chennai. But for the alternate connectivity, we have proposed Puri as an option because of this issue only.
Right. No, it's interesting. There are, limited or hardly any, there are 3-4 cities for the landing perspective for the volume of cables that are coming, and, and we talk about redundancy. So there's another factor to be looked into from a redundancy perspective of having more locations. I think that's an important factor. So, moving on from a repair challenges perspective, and Somesh, we'd like to get your views on what are the real challenges from a repair of the cables on a normal, time. That what do you do proactively? What happens there? So what's your view? Because since you would have done this for a living and seen all this happening.
Yeah. So I think before I start talking about the repair, I think it's very important to see the protection mechanism. I think we have so many faults, especially around Bombay, and we have been hearing that, all the cables, most of the cables are getting concentrated around Bombay. To give you an example, last year, 2024, we have 10 cable faults across all the providers. And it took almost like 6 months, continuous 6 months, our partner E-Marine was here and repairing the cables, and it could only repair 9 cables because 6 months time is a very long time, and they have to go back, and they were supposed to come with another ship. So this is the kind of problem that we are facing. So the first and foremost means, while I'll talk about the repair, I think we need to have proper protection mechanism after the cable has been laid. While Mr. Jussi talked about, before laying what we need to do, even after laying, I think there has to be proper, protection mechanism. And the major problem that we have identified why we are facing those kind of problems is it's fishing trawlers, which most of the time, they damage our cables, and we are not able to do much, while a lot of discussions are going on with the Maritime Board and also in DOT and other forums, but I think this is one of the biggest problems. And once we have this problem of faults, the second problem that we have to face and is the repair, which is like almost like a project for us when we plan for repair of a cable. And thankfully, if you see the environment where we are geographically, we have a service provider on the west side, and we have service provider on the east side. So we have 5 ships, on the west side, based out of UAE, and 4 cable ships which are based out of near our Singapore. So from the cable ships, perspective, we have quite a good coverage. The only challenge is the availability of the cable ship, because there are so many faults around, Singapore, that ships are not available, and we have to wait for the cable ship. That becomes one of the, problem not only for us, it's globally, the cable ship availability. We talked about, so many faults, like 200 plus faults globally, and 30, 40 cable ships available, and that too, all ships are aging. So this is another problem that is, for the repair is a big problem faced globally. With respect to the Indian subcontinent, the major problem, another problem that we face is, the monsoon season, during which we are not able to do, especially in the Mumbai region. So we are not able to repair. If some cable faults happen during the monsoon season, it takes time. We have to wait for monsoons to go or weather to subside, and then only we can repair. So the repair itself becomes a big issue. It's a very challenging project. And the third issue that comes, once everything is there, ship is available, and the weather is fine for repairing, then we have to go through the permitting process, which has improved a lot over the past several years, like in terms of some advance clearances and advance permit. But again, there are few things that still are very painful, and I'll just talk about them also while we are talking the repair. The first thing is the custom duty, the importation of the ship, the importation of material, custom duties, bonds. There's so many things to be done. And almost like, we spend 15 days, the ship is standing on the port doing all these formalities. And not only the, days that we are wasting, we pay, 20, 30,000 US dollar per day for the ship. They are also sitting idly doing nothing, just, waiting for the permit. Right. So if you multiply, it becomes like 2-3 crores, just standing doing nothing. So that is the big problem. And we are losing time, the ships are not available, and ship is, standing here doing nothing, and it's impacting others also. So that becomes one of the big issue. And there are other permits, and ideally speaking, the way it should happen, especially in the EEZ, where we have most of the faults, the cable ship should come and go without even coming to the port. It's a repair, it's a critical infrastructure. Why it should come to the port, do all the permitting process? It should be simplified, or if not possible, then at least we should have some advance clearance so that it doesn't have to face those kind of challenges. So these are the challenges that we face, and it becomes like a big project for us when cable goes down. We get pressure from the both sides, from the customers, and at the same time we have to plan this.
I think importantly, what you mentioned is very critical. That it's not only about the time that it's taking; it's also about the cost that somebody is accruing. So, and though that's mainly the policies and the day-to-day things that can be done faster, or the bureaucratic process needs to pretty much be taken care of. I think that is a good point that you bring on. So Neil, and we hope that your voice is clearer and better now. Moving on, you've heard about the challenges, about the time it takes, and the number of months, etc. from India perspective. Now, what's happening globally in terms of initiatives for faster repair? What are the trends? What are you seeing? How do you make faster turnaround from a repair perspective? Just wanted to get your view on that.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me okay. In terms of situation out there is interesting because I looked at the data produced by the International Cable Protection Committee. And the number of faults globally is relatively stable. The number of cable repair ships is, again, relatively stable. But yet we've got the big increase in the time to repair. And as my other colleagues on the panel have already mentioned, there are a number of factors around that. You know, things like the vessel importation, security clearances in certain countries. I know some of the countries we operate, the security clearance has gone from 2 months to 4 or 5 months. The operational permits, where it used to be 3 to 4 weeks, is now 5 to 6 weeks. So unfortunately, the trend seems to be in the opposite direction than we would like it. So even taking away all things like weather seasons that was mentioned, the actual regulatory process makes it really difficult. That's it above even the sort of vessel availability. So what I've seen in some countries is pre-authorization. So certainly in Taiwan, we've got a system now where we pre-authorize the foreign flag vessels. So the nationality of the vessel doesn't matter. You can get pre-authorization that lasts a year. So it becomes a far simpler process. So instead of taking 1 to 2 months to get the permit, you can get the permits in 7 or 8 days. Ideally, you'd move to a situation like in the around the UK and other parts of Europe where all you need is notifications. So, as the special thing said, the vessel just turns up, does the repair, and goes. If we could push for those sorts of things, then that would make certainly our job in the repair business a lot easier. The last thing we want to do is have vessels sat there waiting for permits, or even sat in port waiting to depart to get to the location. So, in terms of what else could be done, I guess there's a potential to have more vessels in the industry. I know some of the discussion today a bit about local resources around India, and I know there's lots of other governments are talking about similar things, which is an interesting approach. But I think we need to remember that cable systems are global and inherently go out of territorial and EEZ borders. So we have to think about how we manage the faults in the bits in between the country jurisdictions. But generally, if we can get more funding and more vessel availability, that would certainly help. We haven't seen that trend yet. It tends to be a fairly competitive market on the repair side of things. So any ways to increase that number of vessels would be good. And another thing that we've been looking at is, at the moment, lots of the maintenance contracts are actually specific to regions or zones. And maybe that's an old-fashioned concept, and maybe we need to look at how we can increase the flexibility and move across those regions and bring vessels in from other parts, particularly where we've got critical situations where several cables maybe go down at once and you need that additional support. So again, that's something that, as an industry, we probably need to look at. So yeah, I think those are my remarks.
Sure. No. So this is interesting. You know, more vessels needed as an industry. Faster repair time is critical, and I did not hear that. But also, I think from a technology standpoint, things can be done. And I don't know how much of since we as a firm also do a lot of work on AI, and I'm willing maybe Ashutosh maybe have a separate conversation of how technology can be used with Gen AI, etc., to further help from a repair and operations perspective. I'm sure I haven't seen use cases around it, but willing to explore more. And because the models exist and then the technology exists, but maybe we haven't thought through it. So as an industry, I think something to be looked into of how AI, because we have a cognitive knock, we reduced so much stuff on the network side, right? So why can't we do something over here? I think something to be point to ponder on and have maybe a separate conversation around it, but something to be discussed. But coming to the repair vessels, and Somesh, get your view on. So I've heard Southeast Asia, countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia having repair vessels of their own. India still doesn't have any. Does the maths work? If India gets a repair vessel, how will the business case work? Is it too expensive? The need is there. So what's your thought on having a self-sufficient repair vessel for the country?
Okay. So from the perspective of the requirement, I think we do need a vessel based out of some port in India, whether it's Mumbai or Chennai, which can help us in faster repairs. It's just the model, the business model that works and how it works. I think that is something that needs to be detailed. For example, somebody investing 100 million for a cable ship, it should justify the business case. If there are 10 repairs, I don't think that will be able to justify that business case. And one cable shift will definitely not do. We need then 2 cable shifts for redundancy, and that goes on. So I think better approach. I agree. We do need some kind of Indian flag vessels or India-based vessel which can repair, especially in the Indian Ocean, Indian region. But there are various models that can work. We can start in a very small way. For example, a very interesting fact that none of the vessels that are around, they are capable of doing the shallow water repairs. If some faults happens in, for example, 5-meter depth or 2-meter depth, it will take around 6 months to 1 year or maybe more than that to repair that. And it's very dangerous thing. If we have a cable where we have a lot of dependency and there are 2-3 faults happening in the shallow water, it will take maybe a year to rectify that fault. So we can start in a small way, for example, setting up a small vessel which can do shallow water repair and addressing the problem that we are in hand. The other options, maybe we have service providers already like Siokama and eMarine. We can encourage them to have their vessels stations in India. And maybe they will be interested because they are doing business here, they are repairing the cable, they face the challenges. But if we provide proper regulatory environment and maybe the legal environment to them, they may be interested to have their vessels based out of India, and that will encourage them. And for us also, that may be a way to build our capabilities. And either they can manage it or they can manage to some Indian entity. For example, as a TCTS, we are providing managed services to various kind of telecom operators. Those kind of things can be done. But I think there are various ways, rather than investing big way, we can start in a small way. And also, if you are investing in a big way, I think it's a long-term investment. We can build capabilities in maybe 10 years and 15 years, so we have to be conscious about that. If we are investing, it's a long-term investment, a strategic investment, rather than we cannot see it as a business investment to start with.
So look at partnerships, look at creative models, look at creative commercial mechanisms to sort of reduce those costs and make it more viable. But the need is definitely there, is what you basically mentioned. And
At present, it will be more of a strategic point of view than to business point of view.
Right.
I mean,
But
business model is not going to succeed at present, actually.
okay, but from a need point of view, as a country,
Need point of view, it is there, it is required.
No, this is so interesting, because we are all convinced on the need part. Now it's the how, and moving on to real solving these issues point right now. Ashutosh, you touched about regulatory and policy, right? And again, we know that US has come up with policies. A lot of countries in the Western world have come up with policy. There is something called a cable security fleet thing in US. A few years ago, they launched where a $5 million stipend is given to a cable ship operator. So that's a policy that they have made. Now, what is your suggestion if you are given a sort of a board to give a view on the policy that will suit India? And what would be your suggestions to the regulators on this piece?
Okay. Let me not answer this only one specific question. Let me answer 3 questions.
Sure.
The first one is related to whether India should have its own assets pertaining to cable repair or something. The second question is regulatory situation and the things that require to be done on the regulatory front. And the third is cable protection itself. So
Wonderful.
allow me to answer these three questions, even though your question was addressed for just one. The first thing, I know in terms of looking at just repairs of cable and having an asset meant for repairing the cable alone, the maths may not work. But on the other hand, it's a chicken and egg situation. On the other hand, if you look at the situation globally, our friend from Meta mentioned this, the tonnage capacity available today as compared to the projects that are coming up, there is a gap. So if there is one thing that is where there is a gap in demand and supply, that is the marine resources. So if India brings in a cable vessel capable of laying cables, capable of repairing cables, I can promise you there is no dearth of work. Okay, so bring it in, you will get work. Maths will work out. Of course, you need to start small because it's not a matter that can be addressed in a matter of months or weeks. It requires a lot of technical competence, a lot of operational understanding, and you can start with as simple as having a cable storage depot in India. It's not a rocket science. It doesn't require a huge amount of investment either. That's something you can do. Our neighbors, Sri Lanka has it in Galing. Then you can look at shallow water repairs and then the cable laying vessel also. So I think if the things are taken up in the right direction, in the right manner, it will work out. Coming to the regulatory environment, definitely the regulatory environment needs to be more accommodative and I would say a single window process. But at the same time, let me tell you, I said I started my submarine career from the CANI project. I can tell you, since the day I started CANI project till today, I have seen there is an improvement. I must acknowledge that there is an improvement in terms of the way the permissions are handled. There was no online mechanism existing 5-6 years back. Now there is an online mechanism. Something more needs to be done in terms of reducing the inefficiencies that are existing in terms of handling the permissions, as also coordination among various authorities. It's not actually a humongous 51 permits. There may be small permits required. They can be done in parallel. It's only if we can take care of 10, 12 major components, things can fall in place. That's something which requires a serious thought without getting bogged down by it. And sometimes we think too much about the negativities involved. We have to come out of that negative mindset. It's important. Now, the third thing that I wanted to address was the protection. You see, when it comes to the sabotage part of it or the geopolitical evolving situation, whatever you do, you may always fall short. So let the governments, let the countries think about that and take care about it. What I would want to say is we should take care of simple things that we can control, which is taking along the stakeholders. Some of the key stakeholders, and one of the key stakeholders in cable protection are the fishing community. I think we have ignored that. We do not have any formal mechanism of communication with the fishing community to tell them, hey, the cable is coming up in this location, please cooperate for a certain period of time and have a mechanism of compensation. I don't think in India it's going to cost as much. For instance, in Japan, we have such policy, and if I tell you the amount of money the people in Japan are paying to fishing communities, you will be surprised. It will be a fraction of that amount that will do the job in India. Those kind of things need to be done. Redundancy in terms of having alternate cable landing locations, as I mentioned, is important. And knowing about the whole thing. You see, if you build the awareness, that in itself will create the sensitivities and ensure that people stay away from that important infrastructure and don't disturb it. That is important. So those are the basic things that you need to do which will go a long way in ensuring the protection of this important and critical infrastructure.
No, brilliant. I think one of the most important I picked up from there is the point about stakeholder collaboration in terms of, having like the fishing companies around it. And those things have happened in different countries, and something to be looked into from here also. So very, very important point around stakeholder collaboration. And I'll come to you, Neil, on this whole, need of a dedicated repair infrastructure for a given, country should have it. It'll reduce downtime, reduce the repair time, everything. But how important is stakeholder collaboration from your view, and what are some practical methods and ways to do that, right? I mean, what are you seeing, and what's your opinion around this whole, the stakeholder collaboration piece?
I think Ashutosh just raised a very important point in terms of the liaison with the fishing unions. A huge percentage of the faults are caused due to fishing, just due to accidental damage on the cables. And I know in various locations around the world we do have fishing liaison officers that go into the ports, hand out details of the cable locations, make sure that the fishermen understand the dangers, not just to the cable itself, but also to themselves. Fishermen generally don't like to damage the cables because it damages their equipment as well. So a strong liaison with the fishing unions and representatives is absolutely critical, and that's something that could be supported by the government as well. There could be government campaigns and funding towards supporting that. So that's another area where the stakeholder could get involved. But in terms of the resilience, there are other things that we can look at, such as AIS monitoring for the vessels. So it's early warning systems, so that we have detection methods and systems in place to notify the fishermen when they're approaching a cable or fishing a longer cable. Again, that does prove very effective. There's new systems coming in terms of fibre sensing. So again, they are early warning mechanisms that you can put on the cable systems that can alert, you can notify the fishermen or the vessel captains and make sure that they are fully warned that they are approaching cables. Building this infrastructure all around your cable system in the national waters is critical to protecting. Because if you prevent the faults, then the cable repair time becomes irrelevant. So the first thing has got to be about the notification and stopping damage occurring in the first place. And I think the other panels have talked about alternative routes and making sure we, at the installation stage, we installed in the right areas. We have taken account all the activities in the area. Is it a heavily fished area? What type of fishing does go on? What other activities is there? What other infrastructure? And all those things have got to be built in at the initial installation phase. Okay. In terms of having a local vessel, we need to think about whether it's a locally flagged vessel or it's a fully funded government vessel. I don't know. Again, this has been talked about quite a while, but how the business model works exactly is still being talked about, and I don't think I've come across someone who's come up with the ideal solution, because there are pros and cons in lots of different scenarios. So I think as I mentioned before, the key thing is to make sure that we reduce the amount of approvals and be able to get in there faster to build that resilience. One option I was considering as maybe an alternative to locally owned vessels is perhaps governments taking part in marine maintenance services. So, like for ourselves, to provide a maintenance service. Could the government invest in that and then and not just us, but obviously our competitors as well. So it's a level playing field. But if they did that, then if there was a particular system that was critical to the country, then they could call out a vessel as well. And it might be a cheaper way of getting local resources, shall we say. If you have pre-authorised vessels that were partly paid for by the government that could come in and repair with reduced regulatory control, then that might just be an alternative to buying a new ship, which I've just mentioned. They're not cheap and they are difficult to maintain the skills on the vessels. So you do need them fairly active so that you can keep up the level of training and skills and the right level of investment.
You give some
So-
really valid points out here, and a lot of practical, examples that you gave around the importance of stakeholder collaboration. I think that just summarizes the whole thing around the need for collaborating to, get into and solving operations. You have a point, Sumesh, please?
Yeah, just one quick point, I think, on the stakeholders engagement. We started this kind of engagement in Mumbai and, along with the other cable operators, we are engaging with the fishermen, we are making the awareness about, the cables, submarine cables and how to protect them. And we are at a very, advanced stage of having some compensation agreement with them and along with all the operators. I hope that will help, and we were requiring some support from DOT, and I think they're supporting us in terms of writing to the Commissioner of Fisheries in Mumbai, who is very supporting to us, and I think that will help, and maybe it will help in reducing the submarine cables cut near Mumbai.
Oh, thank you. Very important point. I think we are over time, but happy to have any questions. Anybody wants to share anything, ask anything to the panelist. Can we have a mic here?
Hello. Yeah, Praveen Sharma. About the Indian flagship, has been a discussion about the requirement for past 2 years now with the government, and there is definitely a government need, which is there. So there is a need for the government, a very strategic need, coupled with, you can say, a kind of a attendant benefit to the other submarine cable operators which can be there. But the important thing is, once there is an India flagship, the strategic requirement was both for repair as well for laying the cables. So that kind of requirement can be fulfilled by the government funds, because it is the broadband services which are at stake when you talk about bandwidth, and the USO fund is there, which only the operators have contributed the money. So that fund can be used to create that facility, which can be a government-owned facility, which can be, say, run by TCIL, which is wholly owned by government, or by BSNL or whatever. Then we also develop the expertise to do the repairs within the country also as well, when you have that shift. So that is an attendant advantage which is there. But only one caveat, that there should not be any mandate that all the submarine cable operators have to use only that ship and not any other ship. So that is one very important caveat which is there. Second point which I wanted to point it out, which Somesh has missed out, is state governments are also seeing the submarine cable infrastructure as a revenue earning capacity opportunity for them, which is bad. Actually, it is the infrastructure which is being built, and they are seeing it as a revenue sharing or revenue earning opportunity, which needs to be cleared out. Thank you.
Thank you. Well points. I think I will well taken. I think no denial what you said. So it's well accepted, all those points. Any other question? Last, there is a question there.
I'm Ujjwal Kumar from Cuts International. I was reading into 6G technology, and I came to know that there are innovations going on to rectify if there are faulty network, self-rectify, particularly using AI and kind of thing. Are there any innovation happening for these deep sea cable also, that they can self-rectify or self-repair themselves using AI and other things?
I don't think, I haven't heard, but you guys are the more
I think
experts.
they are still in the R&D phase, and typically submarine cable industry, especially on the marine side, is little lacking in that kind of new technologies, but nothing that is working at this point of time.
That's the technological advancement that should happen actually. Yeah.
You see, what probably you would, I think what you're probably referring to is, We have submarine cables which are basically point to point, but there are cables which are branching out to several locations also. So first of all, the damage to the cables is a physical damage and it needs to be attended physically. It needs to be repaired physically. But what I feel you probably are referring to is self-healing network in terms of rerouting the traffic to an alternate path. Yes, that is possible technically because we have as part of the so-called wet plant, we have active devices, and there are ROADMs which have switching capability. So you can that way switch a path to an alternate route if available, so such that till the physical repairs are done, an alternate route is provided. Such things are possible, and detecting that using AI technology and doing it automatically on the go, technically feasible. I'm not sure whether it's already happening or not, but when it comes to repair, it has to be physical.
Thank you, Ashutosh. I think we are all over time, so we'll just, I'll hand it over to Chaubiji to summarize. But I think thanks for the, fantastic discussions. We covered mainly all the points that we spoke about the need of, automation, repair, etc., and critical for India to be the, to have a lot of automation, a lot of self sort of managed repair goals, etc., that we can, as a country, do. So long way to go, but Chaubiji, over to you to maybe quickly summarize this discussion.
Only one line summary is there that we need these capabilities, but that will be at present mostly on a strategic point of view rather than business point of view. This is number one. Second thing is that the cost of the vessel is too high. Actually, it is the capex and the opex is too high. Capex to the tune of around 2 to 3,000 crore per vessel and OPEX around 3 to 400 crore per year. So this, suppose you are having only 4, 5, 6 cuts a year, and the average revenue that one gets is maybe less than 100 crore for that. So having incurred so much capex on this capability and earning on this, so meager amount, it will be financially, it will not be viable proposition. So, but strategically, yes, we should have this, and we have submitted some recommendations to government, and government is considering it, and most probably in times to come, there will be some decision on that.
Thank you, Chaubiji. Thanks for the brilliant summary. And let me thank the panelists. Neil, thanks for taking the time out and joining from England. Good to hear your views and give a global perspective. Somesh, Ashutosh, thanks for joining. And can we have a round of applause for the panelists, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, sir. I would request our chair, our moderator, sir, Mr. Vinesh Bawa, to kindly do the honors of presenting a token of appreciation to our panelists. We present to Mr. Ashutosh Jutshi, Senior Vice President and Head, Submarine Business Unit, NEC Corporation India, to Mr. Somesh Gaur, Assistant Vice President and Head at Tata Communications Transformation Services. And we thank Mr. Neil Duckworth for being here with us. Yes. And for all those speakers who are present here on the virtual mode, BIF has promised to send across that token of gratitude and appreciation to them. And I would invite Brigadier Anil Tandon to kindly do the honors of presenting mementos to our moderator and chairperson of the session. We present to our moderator, Mr. Vinesh Bawa. Thank you, sir, for wonderfully moderating the session. And to our session chair, Shri Arun Kumar Chaubeji. And ladies and gentlemen, as we draw the curtain on what has been an insightful, impactful day of discussion at the first, can we have a group photograph quickly? At the first International Subsea Cable Systems Conference, it is time to express a heartfelt gratitude to all those who made this day a resounding success, and to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Neil
I would like to request Brigadier Anil Tandon to kindly stay back for the vote of thanks. Brigadier Tandon is a distinguished leader with an illustrious background in telecommunications. And over to you, sir.
Good evening. I'm standing between you going home, a high tea that is laid out and then going home. I'll just take a little time to propose a formal vote of thanks as we come to the end of this conference, which is the first international conference on subsea cables conducted in India. And I think for this, I would like to thank all my esteemed speakers, guests, government dignitaries, friends from the media, and most of all, the valued attendees who still are here till this late time. We realize that there's an important subject of the importance of subsea cables, and therefore we embarked upon this strategic discussion or a conference on this particular issue. And I think the aim was to bring together some of the major stakeholders, including the hyperscalers, the ILDOs, the government, the data center operators, the regulators, people with international experience, people with domestic experience of actually having laid and maintained the cables. So that was what was the aim, to have all of this together at this particular thing. And it was very encouraging to hear that all the experts agreed that India must prioritize the subsea cables as a critical infrastructure, so that we create a conducive regulatory environment for growth and resilience of subsea cables. There would be a need to explore local partnerships as well as grow the data centers, which would further, the demand side of it in India, because a lot of people said that the capacity is adequate. Well, there are differences of opinion, and the capacity may be adequate at this moment of time, but the way the data is growing, one has to keep in mind that the capacity may not be adequate as we go along. So our aim was to basically build India to become a cable transit hub. I think that was one of the areas that we wanted to have a discussion. The other point was also how to do the repair of the cable and bring in resilience amongst the cables that are there. I think one of the areas in the last, this thing which I had spoken to Vinesh with maybe before the thing, somebody had pointed out to me that we are looking at cuts to a cable, damage to a cable, but we also need to look at the natural calamities like a tsunami or something, because all subsea cables would eventually land at on the beaches, and if there's a tsunami, and what impact it would have on that. So when you're looking at the resilience part of it, that I think should be another aspect that needs to be looked into. Let me now begin by thanking firstly the Chairman TRI, who took time off from his busy schedule and came for the keynote address. Then also Dr. Robert Ravi, CMD BSNL. I think the only organization which has run a cable of their, or not, there are others also, from which is running to the Andaman and both to the other side of the islands. Then we had the industry experts from Scott Cowling from Meta, who came in despite a lot of hiccups. He came from Brazil, and the Heathrow Airport closure made it difficult for him to land up in time. Then the other industry experts were Rahul Vats from Bharti Airtel, Amajit Gupta from Lightstorm. So my special thanks to all of them for being here. Also to Sonia George, Executive Director, Global Digital Inclusivity Partnership. She flew all the way from US to come here, and they are jointly hosting this event along with us. Thank you, Sonia. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Srimati Aruna Sundarajan, the Chairperson of Broadband India Forum and next Secretary DOT, for sparing a valuable time to be with us and providing us an impactful context setting at the beginning of the inaugural session. I'd like to take opportunity also for the three session chairs, Sri Sakya, Additional DG DGT DOT, Mr. Soni, and Shri A.K. Chaube from TCIL for taking out time from out of the busy schedule and chair the three important sessions. And obviously the moderators for the panel, Mr. Shakya, Sonia for panel 2, and Vinish Baba for panel 3. A special thanks to all the speakers and the distinguished panelists in all these panels, and I think very enlightening discussions that we had here. Practical experiences being brought out by all the people. And I think this will help us ensure that the dialogue on subsea cable continues towards having more geographical diversity and positioning India as a global transit hub. I also want to thank our sponsors, Meta, our principal sponsor, and then Lightstorm and NEC, our gold sponsors, and NEC is also the session or social communications partner, and our PR partners, Weber Shandwick. And last but not the least, I'd like to thank Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, under whose guidance and the entire team of the BIF, we were able to put across this event today. My special thanks to Mr. Shashidharan, MD of Bharat Exhibitions, and all the Bharat Exhibition team who has been supporting us as an event partner for this event. And obviously to all the people, delegates who came in the morning. We virtually ran out of space during the inaugural session, which showed the amount of interest that this particular first international submarine subsea cable generated. And so many of you have continued to stay on till the end. With this, I thank everybody once again and request you to join us for a high tea, which is laid outside.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, with that we conclude the first International Subsea Cable Systems Conference in India. On behalf of GDIP and BIF, I extend once again a heartfelt thanks to all our honored guest speakers and delegates for making this conference a grand success with your presence and insights. Thank you all for your participation and attentive presence. We wish you a pleasant day ahead. Safe journey home. Good evening and namaskar.